we have GoLocal columnist Bob Whitcomb talking about his most recent column, thoughts maybe what's going on this week, and thoughts for the future column. So, Bob, we'll come around the corner.
Hi, Kate. How are you?
I'm doing well. Nice to see you, sir.
Nice to see you.
So, a very interesting column, as always. Talked a little bit about healthcare, talked about planning, how Boston's got the master plan, and we kind of chatted a little bit.
Telling everybody what to do about everything. It resolves all issues.
Just listen to Bob. Listen to Bob, you'll be all set. We talked a little bit about the Boston plan last week. If you didn't get a chance, make sure you read it on GoLocal. But a little kind of party politics and university politics wanted to chat with you about. You had a great segment, and I just want to kind of read it here. You wrote, "Why is the middle America angry?" And you pointed to Washington Post heiresses Alali Weymouth's Hampton party invite
that's right.
list.
Big party with all the muckety-mucks were there. The Republicans, Democrats. The one great unifying thing was celebrity and wealth. Now, this kind of stuff has always happened, but this seemed to reach the kind of, I don't know what the right word is, the apotheosis of sort of insider groups. And despite what they say in the public, they're all sort of schmoozing it up and having a great old time. And was it Maureen, what's her name, the columnist said, and they don't care about you at all. And I suggested, actually some of them do. I've even met about 3 of them. And they sort of do care about you in theory, as long as it doesn't mean the diminution of their status, money, power, and that sort of stuff. They really do care about you. Some of them have charities. And I should get into the whole charitable foundation issue, in which huge fortunes, some of that money ends up in family-run charitable foundations, which help the families remain rich.
So pointing out, it's not party politics, if you will, it's class politics.
It's class, right, yeah. It's class politics. It's kind of like years ago when I was working on this book about the windmills down in Nantucket Sound, which never got built because the opposition of, actually, it really came down to one person, very, very rich person called Bill Koch of the famous Koch brothers. I said I had a line in there which I didn't think wasn't bad. The opposition to this was not about parties, political parties. It was about dinner parties.
Very astute observation about
sort of the plutocracy in action, and the plutocracy of the United States is more and more separated from everybody else. I mean, very rich people have always been separated, but now there are many more opportunities to avoid having any kind of encounters with the peasantry.
Well, let's talk about the distinction between, as you said, the differentiation between the classes. Let's move over to Harvard.
Oh, Harvard.
And their attempts
they're waiting for accreditation, I understand. That's right. They'll get it someday if they write a check. If they write at least as big a check as Charlie Kushner wrote to get his son with his mediocre scores into Harvard. Actually, that only took $2.5 million. Boy, I tell you.
But you wrote about their attempt to basically get rid of the finals clubs, get rid of single-sex organizations.
That's right.
And you had some thoughts on that matter.
Well, yeah, I think, are these places sort of elite? But hey, isn't that what Harvard is? What do they let in? 6%, 7%, something like that? It's pretty elite. They're violating freedom of association. On the other hand, you don't have to go to Harvard. I like to remind people. There are probably some other place you could get at least as good, maybe better undergraduate education than Harvard College. And I know a lot of people there. I actually know some people in Harvard in final clubs. So I don't think the final clubs have done great damage to the Republic.
And the grand scheme of things.
I think FDR was in a final flop.
Do you think it's a little bit of a...
I think they have better things to do. I think they should be spending more time getting scholarships for poor kids and stuff like that. Now, the whole point of this is to kind of force diversity.
Yes.
Okay, we're all in favor of diversity, and I think there probably is a lot of diversity at Harvard. Harvard University's got over 20,000 students with everybody, and it's in an urban area. But healthy people should know a wide range of individuals from different classes, different backgrounds. At the same time, to be emotionally healthy, you need smaller groups who can understand you and with whom you feel some comfort, with whom you can confide. And you need both these things. You need an outreach to the wider world, but you also need a smaller group that actually cares about you. And I think trying to sort of make the Harvard undergraduates friends with everybody, it reminds me of the old saw, if you're friends with everybody, you're friends with nobody.
Well, what do you think happens
So I
once
think it's really
kids
stupid.
get out into the real world after going through that?
And then what happens, this is because everybody needs the sort of the psychological, social comfort of smaller groups. They will then ignore the guidance they'll be able to ignore the guidance of the Harvard administration, and they will go and join smaller groups like the Final Clubs and the sororities and all that stuff.
Well,
So
we'll
I
see
think
what
human
happens.
nature.
It always seems that whatever comes out of Harvard seems
Well,
to come under an immense amount of scrutiny.
Yeah, but it goes on. You've got a $35 billion endowment. Everything's fine.
Is it still the second only to the Catholic Church?
Yeah, it may be, who knows, after all these
After
payoffs,
the Catholic Church.
all the priest abuse.
Might be number one.
Might be number one.
We'll
but
take a look
certainly
into that.
By far the richest university. It does have certainly cost issues because, as you know, it's very balkanized, so it's very difficult for the central, kind of the Politburo, the Kremlin of Harvard, to get their paws on a lot of that money, which has to go to the design school, the law school, or
It
whatever.
has been referred to as the
Yeah.
Kremlin of the West,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, very much so.
Let's talk about what happened this week. President Trump's remarks about transgender persons in the military. Do you really think it was a strategic, he knew he was going to do it this week, or was it more distraction politics?
No, I think it was distraction politics because he's got sort of traitors at the White House and the patriots in the White House are leaking madly. I think he's getting maybe at least some sense through his thick skull that a lot of people think he's psychotic, unstable, and a threat to national security, and he's clearly not getting everybody in Congress to march according to orders. It's not yet sort of Hitler Youth.
And what do you think of
So, yeah.
Jack Reed's remarks?
Well, I agree with him. I probably, I know that was I saw there was something kind of condemning him in GoLocal, but I think it was accurate. I think it was clinically accurate. I think the president is deranged.
If there is
Right, yeah.
an assumption
But I
that
probably
perhaps
wouldn't
he
have said
is,
it. Would I have said that? No, not in that context.
but if he's physically unfit, or if he's mentally unfit, psychologically unfit, would not a member of Congress then have to say, we need to start the impeachment process?
Well, some have muttered it, but the Republicans are just not budging on this, with the exception, there are a couple. Lindsey Graham has said some interesting things. I think Senator Cotton from, where is he from? Tennessee, I can't remember, Arkansas. Anyway, some of the senators have sort of made noises about that. I think Senator Collins from Maine is sort of, but the fact is that there's not a lot of courage going on in the Congress now, especially in the House, but also in the Senate. And during the McCarthy era, but even by the way, caveat here, McCarthy was accurate. There were some communists in the government. There were spies. Algerius was a spy on it. But the people who really stopped Joe McCarthy were Republicans. Senator Flanders from Vermont, for example, mostly Northeast Republicans who thought he had gone too far. And we still await such principle and rectitude from the Republicans on Capitol Hill. They still seem very Sammy Glick-ish, and they're looking out, they're looking after their own skin, and they're terrified that if Trump is not forced out, they'll have to deal with this maniac who will take all kinds of vengeful actions.
So here we are. It's Thursday.
Yeah,
Looking
here we
forward to your
are.
column this weekend. What can we expect to find in your
Let
column?
me see, what do we have here? I
You usually have your notes.
I
You got the
usually write it
crib
on
sheet.
my hand, like kids do.
Your little
It's much
cheat
better,
notes.
Yeah, then I could sell my hand. Anyway, a couple of things of interest. One was that the Trump administration has overruled a very important fishing conservation body for the East Coast, and is allowing fishermen out of New Jersey to catch a lot more flounder.
Okay.
Fluke, summer flounder, which doesn't sound very important probably to many people offhand, except that it's the first time that an administration has vetoed a science-based recommendation.
So,
fishing. This is not
could be
good.
problematic too. I mean, good for the fishermen.
Bad
Wait,
for
no,
the fish.
Bad for,
right? Bad for the reproduction of the fish.
Bad for
And
the ocean.
You have to worry about will they extend this to other species under threat. Now the flounder supply has been declining, and I think this is basically sort of a gift to the recreational, maybe even commercial fishing industry, and they'll probably be allowed to catch more fish for a while.
Is that a big fluke I see
A
on the
fluke. It's a fluke.
What else do we have? We got just about another minute here.
Okay, and then we've got the solar farms. And I agree with your friend from EcoRI that it's a mistake, if you can possibly avoid it, to cut down a lot of trees to put up solar panels, because trees are good for climate, protecting us from climate change. That's kind of a silly thing to do. Some places unavoidable, but in a heavily urbanized area like Rhode Island with lots of vacant land, vacant parking lots around strip malls that are closed and all this sort of thing, we really should be trying to put the panels there,
Well,
not cutting down woods.
I can only imagine we're going to be talking about that with EcoRI tomorrow. It's always great to have them in. Last week they pointed out the LNG forum was held at the Public Safety Complex, which kind of scared off some folks who might not really want to waltz into the Public Safety Complex. So we'll have EcoRI on tomorrow. One last thing. What else? What's a teaser?
Yeah, maybe another I said a few words because I'm friends with some of the owners of the Stonehouse controversy down there in Compton, where I think they've been unfairly treated. They're not allowed, at least for the time being, to have weddings and receptions because of the complaints of a small number of kind of politically well-connected people. They've had weddings there since the dawn of time, and I hope something can be worked out because I think that's unfair. Admittedly, I'm biased. I'm friends with one of the owners.
You'll have the full caveat, but you also have a breakdown.
Right.
Check out his column this weekend, Bob Whitcomb.
Okay.
Appreciate you. Ciao.
Ciao.
We'll see you next week. Read his column this